Hey, this is Matti from CORPSESSED and a million of other bands, such as Tormented Tyrant, Prophetess, Tyranny, Wormflagum, Pestilent Hex, and a shitload of others. I got asked by Luxi to do a video of 4 albums that have affected me the most. 4? Just 4? That's fucking impossible. Hey, I'm gonna cheat here. It's impossible to do just 4, so I'm gonna try to turn this into some sort of a conversation about music itself. Maybe my own music, what influenced me, maybe about formats and shit like that. But yeah, let's go. What I mean by that is that I pretty much wear all my musical influences on my sleeve when it comes to my own band. So yeah, you can probably guess what the albums would be just based on what bands I play myself. But yeah, let's get into it. I mean, as you can see from the background, when it comes to formats, I'm a CD guy myself. Comes with the age. I was born in the early 80s, 82. Started buying my own albums around early 90s, and probably the first CD I ever bought was this, the Black Album by Metallica. Naturally, of course, very quickly you run through the whole back catalog. And I mean, yeah, Master of Puppets, probably one of the most influential, but I'm not adding it on the list. I mean, why? Do I listen to it today? No, not that much. Why I'm bringing it up is because of the history and because of the format thing I mentioned previously. So I had this album as an original tape, one of the very few not copied ones, but I can't seem to find it at the moment. Tapes, CDs. Yeah, back when I was young, didn't have that much money to buy CDs. Tapes were actually a more important format back then, basically because you could copy them with friends. I was never into the tape trading thing that much. I just traded and copied albums via friends and cousins and whatnot. It's kind of fucking funny these days that tapes are coming back. I never saw that coming. I mean, I have a shitload of tapes actually in my closet, but I don't even have a tape player at the moment. So, tapes, the format of the future. Who fucking knew? But anyway, yeah, it all started with Metallica. Then it started going, well, downhill from there. Something like stuff like thrash metal, like Testament, Slayer, going to heavier stuff like Sepultura, naturally. But then I think we come to the first album I would like to mention. It's this one. So the debut album from Deicide, which was released in 1990. But when I got into it, it was probably 1995. That's when I went to secondary school, or yläaste in Finland, which means I was 13 years old. And I met this guy called Lauri, which had a really similar taste in music than me, but he had a lot more albums than I did already back then. And so naturally I ended up copying it. And basically this album defined death metal for me since then and still now. I mean, it's still in constant rotation for me. And I know the album from back to front. It's like Slayer on speed. And yeah, Lauri was the guy I ended up forming my first band with, which later morphed into Tyranny around the year 2000. But I mean, back to Deicide. Do I have a cutoff point with this band? Well, back when I got into it in 95, they were already on their 3rd album. I mean, the demos are fucking great. Love them. The debut album, perfect. Legion, fucking love it. Which is better, Legion or the debut? Depends on the day. Different albums, different beasts. Love them both. Today, I'd probably pick the debut over it. Once Upon the Cross, still fucking love it. Like more simpler songs, maybe not that fast, but excellent songs. Serpents of Light, that's kind of where I start losing the plot. It's an okay album, but yeah. After that, good songs here and there. Still good live actually, saw them last summer, but yeah, the albums after that, yeah, kind of hit or miss. Some good stuff there, yeah, but yeah, you know, looking at these jewel case covers, they're all beat to shit. I mean, yeah, where I listen to most to music is at my car, and that's, yeah, need to have a car with a CD player. Or at home, but yeah, there's the vinyl connection. Let's come back to that later on. But when it comes to wearing your influences on your sleeve, yeah, all the Deicide stuff I mentioned when it comes to Tormented Tyrant, one of my bands. That's the main influence, and yeah, if you scroll back this video, you can pretty much trace all of the influences for that band. But anyway, back to 1995 and Deicide, what that did was open the floodgates for death metal for me. I mean, like Cannibal Corpse, fucking Autopsy, Carcass, Morbid Angel, of course, stuff like Sinister, and especially Finnish death metal, because, I mean, stuff like this, probably one of the, well, yeah, I'm actually throwing this on the list as one of them. One of the best and most evil sounding Finnish death metal releases ever, still reigning supreme. First album, still fucking great. And the early Sentence stuff. This was really important to me, especially north from here. Kind of a transition period. Well, we'll get into that soon. 95, 96, when it all goes black metal from there. But yeah, Finnish death metal, that's kind of a chapter on its own. And I mean, what is the best Finnish death metal release? It might as well be Privilege of Evil by Amorphis, but it might as well be also Slumber of Sullen Eyes by Demigod, Nesbith by Demilich. But actually, what is the best Finnish death metal release? It's Wisdom of Darkness by Belial. Of fucking course, the original Lethal pressing. This defines Finnish death metal for me. So Belial are a band from Oulu, northern parts of Finland, and they embody this specific type of Finnish riff style that you can also hear in maybe early in Bel Nazarene and Mythos, and probably because they shared members at one point. I don't know fully, but there's this thing that the riffs are really simple, really driven, really dark and brutal, and then there's the what embodies the Finnish sound. There's no like specific Finnish sound, much like this. There is a Swedish sound, which is the Sunlight Studios HM2 sound. Quick sidetrack. What's the best Swedish death metal? It's not Entomb, it's not Dismember. It's fucking this. Grave. Early Grave. This shit is the best Swedish stuff. Finnish sound, there is not like a uniform sound to it, but if there was something, it's maybe the Tiko Tiko sound, which was, I think, a studio in Kemi, maybe? In northern parts of Finland anyway, where some, not all, but some of the Finnish classics were recorded. And there's this, yeah, specific, like really huge drum sound and a really dark driving guitar sound. And where Finnish death metal, it's not that pop oriented like Swedish one, so there's no melodic hooks or choruses, but it's really cryptic, dark, simple, and very brutal. And that's what I love about it. Then, of course, the Amorphis one, there's the evil guitar leads played on maybe 2 or 3 strings tops, or in classical music terms, an ostinato. The evil lead, which composes of maybe 3 or 4 notes, I fucking love that. And with my bands, I've always tried to imbue that early Amorphis / early Abhorrent style leads and that Belial kind of like crushing riff. And for me, that makes perfect death metal. So these two, I guess it's a kind of a tie for me. Yeah, I can't pick one, but both are hugely important for me and influential for me. Especially if you look at my band CORPSESSED. There it is again, wearing it on your sleeve. Yes, there's also DSI, there's also Carcass, there's some incantation in there, for sure. But this is the fucking stuff. And it's actually pretty fucking funny in that sense that these were all past my time. I mean, when I got into it, the bands were not active anymore, so I got them posthumously, mainly. Or in the case of Amorphis and Sentenced, they've drastically changed styles by then. And Finnish death metal by then, that was pretty much a bygone era and dead. And what is also funny is that still these albums that I listened to as a preteen still pretty much define my musical taste even today. Yeah, go figure. Yeah, we could also lump into the list the first Xysma demo, the Abhorrence demo, Disgrace demos, Funebre demo number 2 from 1990, Depravity, Rippikoulu, yeah. All good stuff and very influential. But I didn't get this stuff during the 90s. I was late to the party because like I mentioned, I got into death metal around 95 and everything was already gone by then. And I was really young anyway, so not my generation. I'm too young to be part of the first wave, so most of that stuff I found later on. But yeah, we'll return to that when we get to the 2000s. But let's go to 1996 next, because I think by then Finland was pretty much a black metal country and I was an impressionable teenager. And of course, I got into black metal. Some people could say that by 96, I was actually already late to the black metal party as well, because the genre was past its prime. Yeah, there's some points to that as well. I mean, we've already had by 96 probably the most influential and best Norwegian classics, meaning the first Emperors, Dark Thrones, Immortals, Mayhem's The Mysteries, the first Ulver album, so forth, yeah, Burzum, whatever. Let's of course not limit this to just Norwegian black metal. There's the Swedish stuff like the early Dissection albums, and European stuff like Samael, Master's Hammer, Root. Finnish stuff, of course. We had Beherit's Archgoats, highly influential stuff for me too. And then the whole first wave stuff. Bathory, Venom, Celtic Frost, Blasphemy. The Brazilian stuff, like Sarcophago, or the Cogumelo record stuff. But yeah, it's true. But then again, 96 was an influential year for me, because that's when I got into it. And there was also a huge back catalog to actually dive into. So yeah, I was fully immersed. So I could pull from the shelf like fucking 10 albums here, but let's try to limit it to a few. So the biggest album in 1996 for me, it tells about my age as a teenager, it was this, or this. Dusk and Her Embrace by Cradle of Filth. Often laughed at, not nowadays, back then a lot, but everybody fucking loved it. They were ashamed to admit it. Not so much these days, because it's a bona fide fucking classic of gothic black metal. Yeah, then there was stuff like Limbonic Art, Moon in the Scorpio, of course, the early Emperor stuff. Hugely fucking influential. But if I'm gonna say what's the most important black metal album for me, or band, it was this. Opted Enslavement and Witchcraft. And to some extent the next album, Soul Blight, as well. This came out in 1997. I can't remember fully when I actually found it. It might have been 1998 or something. But I found it through some zines. Actually, yeah, that could be another sidetrack on its own. Zine, how you found bands, zines. Yeah, and it's not fucking zines, it's zines. From magazine, right? What Updated Enslavement did on Witchcraft is basically they took the Emperor template, made it way more symphonic, if you can say that. It has the Creek Holland production, fucking perfect for its time, really necro, but at the same time, really dynamic, really raw, but so creative. And something about this album just still talks to me this day. I mean, the artwork looks atrocious. I don't know if it was that captured my attention or what, but the music is magical. It basically takes the best parts of Emperor and Gorgoroth, well, Pest was vocalist on both bands, and lumps them in together and makes it into a really creative mess without the kind of like the saccharine coating on that maybe this album has on it. Well, yeah, it's greatly produced and so forth, but while I've obtained Enslavement even more, I mean, not to diss early Cradle of Filth, hugely important as well, is that there's something pure and unadulterated in it. It's kind of unique in a sense that the band themselves even tried to replicate it on the next album, but they couldn't just quite make it. I don't know what it's about, but yeah, hugely important album for me. And once again, coming to my own bands, when we were forming Pestilent Hex, this was the main influence why we started doing that stuff. Some other must mentions are, of course, Dirty Scar's Satanic Art, one of the best black metal releases of that time as well. Can't go without this one. I mean, actually, many of these that I have been mentioning are EPs for some reason. Go figure. Bertat by Ulver. Fucking important album. Förkunsten from Kvist. Of course, Mayhem's The Mysteries. And from Dark Throne, I would raise Panzerfaust as my favorite. Why? I don't know. It's a fucked up album. I mean, I love Soulside Journey as well, but that's a completely different beast. And from the Finnish stuff, we cannot go without mentioning Beherit. So Beherit and Drawing Down the Moon. Actually, I probably
stumbled on this band initially in '98 via a compilation CD that actually had 2 tracks from Beherit. Solomon's Gate from Drawing Down the Moon and Fallen Souls from the Lord Diabolus demo. I initially probably hated this shit because, as I mentioned previously, I was into the more melodic kind of stuff, and this was primitive on such a level that it was out of it was out of this world. It was like, how can you go this simple and primitive and even kind of call it music in a sense? The brutalness was pouring out of the speakers, and the minimalism, I didn't really understand it at first, but I came to love it later, and I sort of became obsessed by the band. I started understanding the band better through kind of the doominess of what this album actually is. Because if you take away the blast beats, which there aren't that many, it's actually a really evil doom album that prides itself in real minimalism, hypnotic, trance-like states. And like I said, this album is out of this world, and it's considered a classic for a reason. But if you ask me actually what is the utmost best Beherit stuff for me, it is this, the Lord Diabolus demo, which they did under a different name. Also recorded at Tico Tico Studios, but yeah, it's like the perfect transition between the old demo stuff, or what was compiled on the Oath of Black Blood album, and the later on what became Drawing Down the Moon. This is like the phase in between. There's some two tracks that are also featured on Drawing Down the Moon, but with as a way more savage version on this one. But perfect Beherit release, perfect sound. It's this one. It's not to diss on Drawing Down the Moon, but the Lord Diabolus demo is for me the best. And once again, an EP. There's a theme ongoing here. But as I mentioned, I started understanding this album way better through sort of like a doom mentality. And that's where I was headed anyway next, because by the year 2000, I was pretty much done with black metal, or at least the Norwegian variant of it, because times were changing and everything went into this sort of a digital matrix kind of a thing, which did not really talk to me at all. So where I found more echoes of the musical style that I actually enjoyed was Funeral Doom, which became a huge part of my life after that. But to sort of close off the black metal chapter, I never quit on the genre. I just lost interest in the old bands, what they were doing after that. By the 2000s, the whole scenery of black metal sort of changed. It became either that digitalized monster, or then it went totally underground into way more necro aesthetics, which I enjoyed more. And there were a few bands that I still follow, something like Warlog from Finland from that era, which actually did really good new albums even during the past few years. I think their third album from a few years back is probably actually their best. Quick mention of Beherit, we actually got to share stage with them when they returned to stages after I don't even know how long years of hiatus, but we got to play with them in Barcelona with my band CORPSESSED, so one of the really big highlights for me, actually, even to see them live and to share the stage as well. So yeah, that was huge. But anyway, on to Funeral Doom, and Funeral Doom specifically because traditional doom, say from Candlemass and Black Sabbath and While Heaven Wept and few other bands, really does nothing for me as a genre. It doesn't hold that heaviness for me, so if you think otherwise, keep your opinions, but this is mine. But Funeral Doom really spoke to me because it took that hypnoticness and heaviness and obscureness that I loved in death and black metal, but took it to a new level, if you ask me. And that's where my own band started heading as well. from the early 2000s and onwards. Bands or releases that paved the way for this for me were definitely, of course, Abruptum, the demos especially from the Evil Genius compilation, and the first one, and early Unholy, especially this one, Second Ring of Power, perfect album. These sort of paved the way for me. Well, I wouldn't call these Funeral Doom, but latent to it. But that paved the way for me to get into such stuff as, well, of course, the Finnish masters, Skepticism. Their best stuff is this one, Lead and Aether, or rather this one, the Aether EP. Once again, continuing the EP theme. And of course, Thergaton should be no surprise to anybody. But if you ask me, once again, what is actually most influential Funeral Doom for me, it's not actually Finnish stuff at all. It's stuff like this. The demos from Hierophant, which later transformed into Catacombs. That's the CDI version I bought directly from the band. And yeah, there's the Russian official CD version that came much later. But yeah, I needed to have it because you can't really rely on CDRs with the CD rot. I don't know if that CD actually even plays these days. And another one I would mention is Esoteric, especially Metamorphogenesis. This is a game changer for me. This is a perfect album. Not really Funeral Doom, but more psychedelic kind of extreme doom. I don't know. Genre meisters might have some opinions about that, but I don't give a fuck. That's perfect stuff for me. And then stuff like Dusk from the US. And now actually we're entering vinyl territory, which I mentioned previously. So yeah, of course on vinyl. And can't go without Disembowelment. Perfect death doom. But yeah, by 2006, I had been previously just a CD guy, but my own stuff got released on vinyl. So naturally, I needed to check out how does the vinyl play, and that got me into collecting vinyl as well. The current wall of fame for my own stuff, actually missing a few of them, need to get a fourth row. But continuing on the format thing I've been mentioning previously, so CD from this point on became, for me, not as like a throwaway kind of a format, but more of a more casual format in a sense that you could buy stuff that wasn't probably that important just to test it out because it was cheaper. And yeah, the collection started growing hugely after that. But vinyl kind of became the format for the most important albums. So if I really love an album, I most definitely have it in both formats, vinyl and CD. So the vinyl is reserved for only the most important and best ones. And looking at the stats on my Discogs page at the moment, I think when it comes to amounts, at CD I'm currently at 2,500 and vinyl is about 450. So yeah, maybe that tells you something. But yeah, but need to add that I haven't been actually buying that much during the last few years, mainly because I've been running out of space and perhaps do I already own most of the albums I need to own? I don't know. I do still check out new stuff constantly. And then when it comes to streaming formats, that's not really like a collectible for me in any sense. I don't pay for like Spotify. I don't buy stuff from Bandcamp because I don't view that as like a actual collection, but that's just me and probably due to my age as well and how I like to consume my music. But back to Funeral Doom or Extreme Doom or whatever you want to call it.
To actually trying to even stick to the theme Lux is set up, so picking the albums, it's difficult. It's these four, the Dusk, Majestic Thou in Ruin, Death Doom, not Funeral Doom, whatever. Hierophant, the demos, maybe The Weight of Winter or the one before it. Esoteric's Metamorphogenesis, Skepticism's Aether, and pretty much all of these are actually considered as EPs as well. So what the fuck is going on here? I don't know. But okay, if it comes to Tyranny, the main influences are these two. Tyranny sort of took the template for what we do from the Hierophant song Where No Light Has Shone But for That of the Moon from their first demo. But yeah,
that's it for Doom. But let's return to death metal, like I told about the early 2000s. There was stuff that kept me interested still, like bands like Mortem from Peru, or Cryptopsy. I think this was released something like late 96, maybe? 98? I can't remember. Or Nile. Nile was probably the most important death metal band for me during the early 2000s. But yeah, slowly the interest towards death metal started creeping back in, but instead of looking forwards, because currently the 2000 era of death metal was... I'm not a fan of the whole triggered millennium death metal kind of stuff that much. Yeah, I was into the drum porn era for a bit, but it got old quite fast. But wait point for me was that I started looking back on all of the releases that I had missed from the early 90s. And I don't think I was the only one, because the early 90s demos and releases, those became hugely influential and important to me. And there were other bands who thought the same, much like Funebrarum. Ah, such a good album, this one. Sleep of Morbid Dreams. Or Dead Congregation. Or Cruciamentum. Perfect demo EP. Or Drowned. Also an EP. Or Gamos from Sweden. This, let's say around 2005, 2006. This was the stuff I was hugely into as well. And when I saw it with my Doom bands that they were not going to be much of live bands, but studio bands, more or less. So I wanted to play live again a lot. And for me, the perfect music style of playing live is energetic. So it had to be death metal. So this was what I was drawn into as well. And it took a while to find the guys, but in 2007 January we finally formed CORPSESSED, and we've been steamrolling ever since. God damn, but okay, this video wasn't meant to be this long. We're already reaching the half an hour point, so let's start wrapping it up. And I think that we only barely touched the surface when it comes to my musical taste. So, but these were the most influential albums. Let's have a recap. So, trying to limit it to the 4, that was the assignment. Deicide, number 1. Split, second place. Belial of Darkness, Wisdom of Darkness. By the way, don't do these, like, re-release covers, that's not the original. Don't do it. Slash, the Amorphous Privilege of Evil one. On third place, Witchcraft from Obtain Enslavement. As an important side mention, Beherit. And from the Doom side, Esoteric, Dusk, and those Hierophant demos, but they were never released on vinyl. Yeah, there we go. I tried my best. I mean, we didn't even get to other stuff that I love, like soundtracks, classical music, Pink Floyd, or weird Italian, Slovenian, prog, Devil Doll. This is a hugely important album as well. But yeah, I tried to stick it to the metal side only this time. But yeah, people keep saying, Matti, why the fuck do you have so many bands? This is how my mind works. I cannot... Well, I'm very committed, but not just to one thing. I need to have multiple outlets, because just restricting yourself to one thing is not good enough for me. No, I wanna try it all, and I wanna do it all, because there's just so much stuff out there to love and to do yourself. But with that, cheers.